Hey everybody, Retrofied here. Today is the 8th day in this month-long marathon leading up to the Switch 2's launch, which means we've made a full week in this marathon. So first off, before I start the video, I want to tell you all thank you so much for the support. I've gotten over 100 subscribers since I started this, and just the support from you guys is incredible, and I can't thank you enough. I've said this before, but I've always wanted to have a YouTube channel, so being able to, actually make these videos for you guys is just so awesome. And like I said, thank you guys so much. So if you guys are excited about the Switch 2, make sure you comment what you're excited about, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more of these videos, because we're already a week down, which means we only have about 3 weeks left to go. So without further ado, let's get into today's video about why the Switch 2 is so much better than you think. So starting out, I've heard so many people, a bunch of my friends included, say that the Switch 2 is just a bigger Switch. No, it's not. The Switch 2 is incredibly powerful and is a new generation of a system. And what I mean by this is it's not just like a Switch Pro, it's how the PS4 is with the PS5, or even how like the PS1 is with the PS2. It's a new generation. Yes, they kept the same name and the same look of the system, but it's still a new system. We're getting an incredible amount of games launch day. While a lot of these aren't new games necessarily, there are a lot of third-party games that are huge games. Cyberpunk 2077 running on a portable system like the Nintendo Switch is just incredible. Cyberpunk 2077 is literally one of the benchmark games people use to show off how good a system is. So being able to play that on a portable system made by Nintendo is just crazy. And this is another thing that we're seeing on this system. There are so many third-party games that are coming out launch day, and more that we haven't seen yet that are gonna be coming out soon. If you compare Fortnite from how it is on the Switch 1 to how it is on the Switch 2, it is an incredible difference. And yes, it is Fortnite, which is a free game and isn't that high in graphics quality, but for the Switch 2, for it to just look like how it looks on the PS5 is crazy. So like I said, with these third-party games, just the comparisons between this and like a PS4 Pro are on par. And the PS4 Pro isn't that old of a console. I believe it came out in 2018. So yes, a 2018 system, well, see, that's kind of old, but this is a portable system the size of like a phone and a half, and it's running these games natively. So it's not like the PS Portal where you have to have an internet connection and you can play games from your PS5. These games are being played on this system, which means that you can play these anywhere. You can play them in an airport with no internet. You can play them just anywhere. So to have that ability is just amazing. Now, another thing about this system that makes it so much better than the original Switch is just all the minor improvements they've made to it. If you've played Mario Kart with a big group of people and had to use the Joy-Cons on the side, you know what I'm talking about. The original Joy-Cons had little tic-tacs for buttons. The Switch 2 completely redoes the entire system from the ground up while keeping the same style that they had with the Switch 1. They said this in the Direct, but they made so many changes to the system, it's practically non-distinguishable from the original Switch, only it has the same case and it has the same UI. But they made so many changes that are just quality of life improvements from the original Switch that we're seeing on this new system. So another really cool thing that we're seeing on the Switch 2 is just the amount of first-party games from the Switch 1 that are going to get an upgrade for this system. We already saw a bunch in the Direct that are getting entirely brand new versions, but there's so many games that have yet to be announced for the Switch 2 to get a better version made. It's really nice for Nintendo to kind of go back to some of their best hits from the Switch 1 and kind of just add new DLC or add better graphics to the game. It makes the launch of this system so much crazier because we have the entire catalog of the Switch 1 on this system. And with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom getting updates on launch day, you can have entirely new adventures with this game. And with some other games, they're getting some upgrades later on down the line. And there are some games that haven't been announced yet, but we will be getting a Direct probably in June talking about more Switch 2 editions of games that we're getting. And now one thing that isn't necessarily about the Switch 2 being so much better, but one thing that I kind of just want to break the negative talking about is the game key cards. So many people are complaining about Nintendo coming out with these game key cards, which don't actually have the game on them, but rather they have a line of code saying that you can play this game. This isn't anything really new. Sony and Xbox have been doing this since the PS4. A lot of games on the PS4 don't have the game on them. They just have a little key saying you can play this game. And I know it is kind of weird for Nintendo to have this because a lot of their games have always been on the disc or on the cartridge. So they're kind of straying away from this. I think it'd be really nice for Nintendo to actually include the game on the cartridge fully, since we're paying $80 for these games. But at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. You still get to have the game physically, which is always really nice. I love collecting games physically. The only downside with it is storage space. I would imagine that, getting so many of these game key cards is basically just getting them digitally, but you have to have the cartridge to play the game. And it has to actually download the game on your system rather than just downloading the save data from the game. But taking that into account, it's not that big of a deal. But right now, the Switch 2 is probably one of the best handhelds you can get, especially at its price of $450. When it comes to video game handhelds, the Steam Deck is about that price or even more for what they're offering with the same storage capacity. So my main hope for the Switch 2 is that they come out with so many more third-party games that are PC games and just more PS5 and Xbox Series X games, because I would love to play some of these games portably. I already said that Cyberpunk 2077 I have yet to play, but I'm going to get that game day one and play through it on the Switch 2 because it is portable. So yeah, wrapping up, I just think that the Switch 2 is such just an incredible package for its price, and I think it's just a great system. So seeing a lot of people saying that, it's just a bigger Switch doesn't really make sense. And one thing that I'd like to say is that as a Nintendo fan, I want this console to do good. So I'm very excited for these couple years of the Switch 2 that we're going to be getting. I can't wait to see what Nintendo has in store. So if you guys are excited about the Switch 2, let me know if you're picking one up, if you already pre-ordered one, or just what games you're excited for, especially the third-party games. So I will see you guys tomorrow.